December 1983. Malibu, California. Clint Eastwood sits alone in his study at 2 a.m., a script in his hands that he cannot put down but cannot bring himself to read again. The pages are called Unforgiven. And for the first time in his career, Clint is afraid of a character. Not because the character is violent. Clint has played violent men for 20 years, but because this character is too close, too real, too much like the man Clint fears he might have become. The script arrived 3 days ago, sent by his agent with a note. This is the one. Clint read it in one sitting, 90 pages that felt like a confession. William Money, a retired gunfighter, a man who killed women and children, who drank himself into a monster, and who tried to escape by becoming a farmer, a husband, a father. But the past never lets you go. And when Money picks up the gun again, when he rides back into that world, he becomes what he always was. A killer. Clint closes the script, looks out the window at the dark Pacific. He is 53 years old. For the past 2 decades, he has been one of the biggest movie stars in the world, the man with no name. Dirty Harry. Characters who shoot first, who never apologize, who define masculinity through violence. America loves him for it. Millions of people watch his films and cheer when he pulls the trigger. But Clint has never cheered. He plays these roles because he is good at them, because audiences expect them, because Hollywood rewards him for being the tough guy, the man who does not flinch. But every time he pulls a trigger on screen, every time he delivers a line about making someone's day, something inside him tightens. A small voice asks, "What are you glorifying? What are you teaching?" He has ignored that voice for years, told himself it is just acting, just entertainment. But this script will not let him ignore it anymore, because William Money is not a hero. He is not redeemed by his violence. He is damned by it, and the film makes no excuses for him. Clint picks up the phone, calls the screenwriter, David Webb Peoples. It is late, but Peoples answers. They talk for an hour. Peoples explains his vision, a Western that deconstructs the myth of the gunslinger, that shows violence as ugly and permanent, that refuses to let the hero walk away clean. Clint listens, asks questions, finally says, "I want to make this." But not yet. Peoples is confused. Why not? Clint doesn't answer immediately. How does he explain that he is not ready to face William Money? That playing this character will require him to excavate parts of himself he has spent a lifetime burying? Finally, he says, "I need to be older. I need to carry more weight. I need to understand what it means to live with regret." Peoples does not push. He trusts Clint. They agree to wait. Clint buys the script, puts it in a drawer, tells himself he will return to it when the time is right, but the script haunts him. Over the next 9 years, Clint makes 14 films, action films, comedies, dramas. He keeps working, keeps moving, but the script is always there, waiting. Sometimes he takes it out, reads a few pages, and puts it back. Not yet, not yet. To understand why Clint waited, you need to understand who Clint Eastwood was before he became Clint Eastwood. He was born in 1930, the middle of the Great Depression. His father, Clinton Sr., was a steelworker who could not hold a job. The family moved constantly: Oakland, Sacramento, Piedmont, Seattle. Clint attended 8 different schools before graduating high school. He learned not to get attached, not to expect stability. His father was not cruel, but he was absent, emotionally distant, a man who worked when there was work and drank when there was not, a man who never hugged his son, never told him he was proud, never showed weakness. And Clint learned to be the same, silent, controlled, never needing anyone. When Clint was 19, he was drafted into the Army, sent to Fort Ord during the Korean War. He was assigned as a swimming instructor, safe and far from combat. But he remembers the men who did go to war, the ones who came back quiet, haunted, unable to explain what they had seen. And he remembers the ones who did not come back at all. After the Army, Clint drifted, worked odd jobs, dug pools, loaded trucks. He was 6'4", good-looking, physically imposing. Someone suggested acting. He thought it was ridiculous, but he needed money. He took classes, got small roles on TV westerns, and in 1959 he was cast as Rowdy Yates on Rawhide. It should have been his break. 7 years on a hit television show. But Clint was miserable. He was playing a sidekick, a supporting character. The scripts were shallow. The directors treated him like cattle. Move here. Say this. Do not think. Just perform. And Clint realized that if he stayed in television, he would disappear. He would become another forgotten face in another forgotten show. In 1964, an Italian director named Sergio Leone offered him a role in a Western being shot in Spain. The pay was terrible. The script barely existed. But Clint saw something in Leone's vision, a different kind of Western, darker, more mythic. He took the role. A fistful of dollars was a success. Then for a few dollars more. Then the good, the bad, and the ugly. And suddenly, Clint Eastwood was not Rowdy Yates anymore. He was the man with no name. Silent, deadly, untouchable, Hollywood noticed. In 1971, Clint was cast as Harry Callahan in Dirty Harry. The role made him a superstar. Dirty Harry was a cop who did not play by the rules, who shot criminals, and did not lose sleep over it. Audiences loved him. The film made millions. Clint became an icon, but something bothered him. Dirty Harry was a fantasy, a vigilante fantasy. People watched the film and cheered when Harry killed the bad guys. They did not ask questions. They did not think about consequences. They just wanted the satisfaction of seeing justice delivered through violence. And Clint gave it to them, again and again. 4 more Dirty Harry films, each one more violent than the last. By the early 1980s, Clint was exhausted, not physically, emotionally. He had played the tough guy so many times that he did not know who he was anymore. Was he Clint Eastwood, the quiet kid from Oakland who just wanted to make films? Or was he Harry Callahan, the man who solved problems with a .44 Magnum? The lines were blurring. In 1982, his father died. Clinton Sr. was 72. He had lived a hard life and died quietly, without drama. Clint flew to Northern California for the funeral, stood by the grave and realized he barely knew his father. They had lived in the same house for 18 years, but had never really talked, never connected. And now it was too late. Clint thought about his own children, Kyle, Allison. He had not been much better than his father, always working, always on set, telling himself that providing for them was enough. But was it? Or was he just repeating the pattern? Becoming another distant man, another ghost in his children's lives? That is when the Unforgiven script arrived. And Clint understood why it terrified him. Because William Money was not just a character, he was a warning, a vision of what Clint could become if he did not change. A man who ran from his past, who tried to be better, but who could never escape what he had done. A man whose violence defined him, even when he tried to walk away from it. The years pass. Clint makes film after film, but he is changing, becoming more introspective. In 1988, he directs Bird, a film about Charlie Parker, the jazz musician who destroyed himself with drugs and alcohol. The film is personal, painful. It is about talent wasted, about genius crushed by addiction. Clint does not say it out loud, but everyone on set understands. Bird is also about fear. The fear that no matter how successful you become, you can still lose everything. In 1990, Clint directs White Hunter, Black Heart, a film about a director obsessed with killing an elephant. The film is about ego, about men who confuse conquest with achievement. Again, it is personal. Clint is interrogating himself, asking, "What have I been chasing? What have I been trying to prove?" By 1991, Clint is 61. His father would have been 81 if he had lived. Clint is now older than his father ever seemed to him as a child. And something shifts. He takes out the Unforgiven script again, reads it. This time, he does not put it back in the drawer. He calls Peoples. "I am ready." Peoples asks, "What changed?" Clint thinks for a moment. "I am old enough now. old enough to understand that violence is not heroic, that killing leaves scars, that you cannot outrun your past. Peoples is quiet on the other end of the line. Then he says, "Good, make the film." Production begins in August 1991, Alberta, Canada, standing in for Wyoming. The shoot is brutal: heat, dust, exhaustion. But Clint does not care about the physical discomfort. He cares about getting the character right, about making William Money real. Every morning, Clint sits alone in his trailer before filming. He does not rehearse lines. He does not prepare. He just sits, thinking about his father, about the men he has played, about the violence he has glorified, about the cost of being the man with no name, the man who shoots first and never looks back. On camera, Clint becomes Money, not with makeup or prosthetics, with weariness. Money is a man who is tired, tired of killing, tired of pretending he can be something better, tired of carrying the weight of the dead. And Clint does not have to act that tiredness. He feels it in his bones, in his soul. There is a scene late in the film. Money has just killed 5 men. He is standing in the rain, soaked, shaking. His partner, the Schofield kid, is horrified. The kid thought killing would make him feel powerful. Instead, he feels sick. He says, "It does not seem real." How he is never going to breathe again. Ever. And Money looks at him and says, "It is a hell of a thing, killing a man. You take away all he has got and all he is ever going to have." Clint does not deliver that line like a movie star. He delivers it like a man who understands. Like a man who has been complicit in glorifying violence for 20 years and is finally admitting the truth. Killing is not heroic. It is not clean. It is theft. The theft of a life, a future, a possibility. The crew watches the take in silence. Some are uncomfortable. They have worked with Clint for years. They know him as the tough guy, the action star. But this is different. This is vulnerability. This is shame. This is a man confronting the darkest part of himself and refusing to look away. Gene Hackman, who plays the film's villain, approaches Clint after the take. "That was brutal," Gene says. Clint nods. "Good. It should be." Gene studies him. "This is not just a role for you, is it?" Clint looks at him. "No, it is not." They do not talk about it again. But Gene understands. Unforgiven is Clint's reckoning, his attempt to dismantle the myth he helped create, the myth that violence is a solution, that tough men do not feel, that heroes are made by killing. Unforgiven wraps in October 1991. Post-production takes months. Clint is meticulous. Every cut, every frame matters. He is not making an action film. He is making a meditation on violence, on aging, on the impossibility of redemption. And he knows it will alienate some of his fans. The people who love Dirty Harry will not love William Money, because money does not give them satisfaction. He gives them truth. The film premieres in August 1992. The reviews are extraordinary. Critics call it a masterpiece. Roger Ebert writes, "Eastwood has made a film that destroys the myths of the Western and his own screen persona." Audiences are divided. Some love it. Some are confused. Where is the hero? Where is the triumph? But slowly, the film finds its audience. People who are tired of empty violence, people who want stories about consequence, about pain, about the cost of being human. In March 1993, Unforgiven wins 4 Academy Awards: Best Picture, Best Director, Best Supporting Actor for Gene Hackman, Best Film Editing. Clint stands on stage at the Dorothy Chandler Pavilion holding his Oscar. He looks out at the audience, all the biggest stars in Hollywood, all the people who have watched him play the tough guy for 20 years. And he says, "This is for everyone who worked on this film." Then he walks off stage. Backstage, a journalist asks him what Unforgiven means to him personally. Clint is quiet for a long time. Then he says, "It means I do not have to run anymore." The journalist does not understand. Run from what? Clint looks at him. From who I was, from who I thought I had to be. Years later, Clint is asked if making Unforgiven changed him. He thinks for a moment. Then he says, "It let me stop pretending." I spent my whole career playing men who do not feel, who do not break, who do not question, and I was good at it. But it was not me. It was never me. I was always the kid from Oakland who was scared his father did not love him, who was scared he would not be enough. And I buried that under all these characters, all these tough guys. But making Unforgiven, playing William Money, it forced me to stop burying, to admit that violence is not strength, that admitting pain is not weakness, that being afraid does not make you less of a man. The journalist asks, "Do you regret the earlier films, the Dirty Harry films?" Clint shakes his head. No, they were what I needed at the time, and they entertained people. But I am glad I made Unforgiven. I am glad I waited until I was old enough to understand what I was really saying. That is who Clint Eastwood is, not the man with no name, not Dirty Harry. The man who spent 20 years playing heroes and then had the courage to admit that heroes are a lie. That real strength is admitting fear. Real courage is facing the parts of yourself you do not want to see. In that study in Malibu in 1983, Clint Eastwood held a script that terrified him. And instead of running, instead of pretending it did not matter, he waited. He sat with that fear for 9 years. Let it grow. Let it teach him. And when he finally made the film, he did not make it to prove anything to Hollywood or to his fans. He made it to prove something to himself, that he could look at the darkest parts of his soul, the violence, the anger, the fear, and not turn away. Unforgiven is not just a film about an aging gunslinger. It is a film about every man who has ever built an identity on being tough, on not feeling, on never breaking. And it is a film about what happens when that man finally admits the truth. That toughness is a mask, that violence is a wound, that the only way to heal is to stop pretending. On set in Alberta in 1991, Clint Eastwood stood in the rain as William Money. And he did not act. He just existed. An old man, tired, broken, honest. And for the first time in his career, he let the audience see him. Not the icon, not the star, just a man who has done terrible things and is trying to understand what they mean. That is the legacy of Unforgiven. Not the awards or the box office or the critical acclaim. The legacy is that Clint Eastwood faced his darkest side, and he did not blink. He looked at it, admitted it, honored it. And in doing so, he gave permission to every man watching to do the same, to stop pretending, to stop performing, to admit that beneath the armor, beneath the violence, beneath the myth, there is just a human being, scared, flawed, trying. That is Clint Eastwood, silent, honest, carrying the weight of every character he ever played, and finally, at 61 years old, setting it down. If this story made you think about the masks we wear and the courage it takes to remove them, consider subscribing. More stories about the quiet bravery of honest men coming soon.